Ladies and gentlemen, come gather round, come gather round, come gather around. Today, as is usually the case with vehicles I desperately want to get rid of, stuff broke, so we gotta spend some money. So, let's go! So we hit that spot that I try to tell people to avoid, which is where your brakes start making noise. So, we were on a trip down to the States, all the way into Nevada or Arizona or somewhere, and the back wheels started smelling like burnt and going so it's like, I think I know what that is. That's the sound of expensive. You want to avoid that. So we're going to take a look. We're back home. We're going to take a look and see what has happened. I'm pretty sure I know. So we bought this car 5 years ago and all the brakes were shot. So I put all new rotors, all new pads, all new rotors and pads. And we ran it fine. I do have a few videos on here in that for some reason the fronts routinely warp the rotors. So lots of comments from people about what I did wrong and all of that. Regardless, this is the first time I've had to go into the back, and I should have probably kept an eye on it, but sure enough, sure as shooting, there was an issue with this one side. And when you're doing brakes, you got to do both sides of the car, so I'm doing both. When you buy pads, they come with a pair of left and right. Let's have a look. They're not supposed to look like this. That's not good. Yeah, so junk. That's more what they're supposed to look like. That's kind of what you want to see. That's kind of what we got. So, hooray, brakes. Now the eagle-eyed among you will notice that the outer pad was significantly thicker than the inner pad, which usually tells you the sliders for the calipers have, they're not doing their sliding, so the piston's doing all the work. So I will be disassembling all of that, gooping it up, and make sure it works, but I want to know, how's that rotor? Then the question is, can we clean this up? A real shop would just we'll just give you new ones, but I got a brake lathe, so we'll see if we can save it. So there is a minimum thickness for rotors, and I did a preliminary measurement, and it looks like I'm well within spec, so I'm just going to cut off as little as I can get away with. I have an weighted elastic band that goes on here to try and remove chatter. I've since picked up it's kind of like two friction blocks that rub against the rotor as you cut. And I think I did those for the front rotors again after this trip. But this one just needed just another little thin skim off there. Did not remove a whole lot of material, but it did clean up okay. So that was kind of nice. Saved a couple bucks there. And since I'm doing the other side, I might as well cut that one too. I usually cut about 3/1000 off for a preliminary cut. And there's always the things you find when you get into brakes, like this. That's, while I want to sell the car, I can't in good conscience sell it with this. So the regular pads for the rotor, 60 bucks. These, just for parking, 120 bucks, because why not? So anyways, I'm going to fix that. So here we go. Back to when we first got this car, the parking brake was somewhere close to marginally effective. And I think I went in and adjusted them. I don't remember if I saw the defect on that shoe way back in the bad old days or not. Nevertheless, we can change it. I'm here. I'm going to do it. Parking brakes are pretty easy to fix. Often it is either poorly adjusted drums or you've got a seized cable. If it's a seized cable, they're like 50 bucks, probably less. Why not change it? What you don't want is to have an inoperable parking brake and then cause a collision because of a brake failure, and you could have stopped if you had a working parking brake or emergency brake, but you don't have one, and then your insurance company is like, wow, you didn't have an operating parking brake, we're not going to cover your insurance. Not saying I've had bad experience with insurance companies, but they're in the business of making money, not paying you out. So we did put this all back together, nice and new, and it Certainly works dandy. So quite pleased with that. There is an access hole where you can get in there and clickety-click to make sure it just sort of drags. A little rubber plug plugs it up, and then we can put this back together. I like to give it a big hose with brake clean when I'm all done. I just barely showed you there some disc brake grease which went into the sliders for these calipers. Normally you should hang the caliper up on something, but this has a nice big huge shelf of a control arm, so I didn't actually hang it. I gambled, and I won. Brake pads usually come with new anti-rattle clips. I think that's what they're called. And these particular ones went together quite nice. The original pair, the original pads, the squealer, which should have squealed before the brakes were an issue, had rusted off, which is a surprise because this thing isn't bad for rust. Had the squealer been working, it would have squealed, and I would have noticed that we had a brake issue long before we had a brake issue. However, such is vehicular ownership. And because this thing eats a set of rotors after every road trip, we did a little slice on the front rotors and put those all back together as well. Lucky, lucky me. Now we got good back brakes, which sound a lot better than they used to, and now I can ditch this car nice and quick. As always, thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you again.